Hello, my name is Simon Parker. I'm the guest editor of Exhibition News, and I'm joined today by Mark Brewster. Mark is the founder and CEO of Explori, most people will know, and most recently has founded VSEF, which we'll talk about in a while. But I thought we'd start, Mark, well, morning first, Mark.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, and we're just saying that it's, for once, the sun is shining. So we've had a month of awful weather. We had the event production show yesterday. I don't know if you managed to get down there, but that was rocking.
Fortunately not, but yeah, no, it's a good event, and I hope they did well this year.
Yeah, well, they were rocking and really showing the world that we can get back to running events, which is superb. But I wanted to talk, I mean, that's probably an appropriate time to start with, really, in the sense that clearly with no events, your business is sort of underpinned by us running events. How have you fared, and what have you been up to in that time, Mark?
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster and a very, very busy time where I think we've taken on more work than we've ever done with less resource than we've ever had, obviously with requirements to manage costs and quite a bit of use of the furlough, which we're now largely off as a business, I'm pleased to say, but yeah, it's been a challenge to take on all the projects that we have without the normal revenue flow. But I'm pretty pleased with how we've come out overall. I think one of the really positive sides that you can take out of something like the pause that the industry's been through is just how much time it gives you to focus on product development. And so we've been able to move the product forward in so many different ways that perhaps we wouldn't have done had we been just busy in the day-to-day delivery of the normal run of business. So we've just launching now customer journey mapping, which is in fact I'm going to correct that, it's customer journey measurement specifically. Enabling organizers to benchmark different journey chapters along this new elongated digital customer journey experience. Which is very exciting. We've launched virtual event benchmarks and been measuring virtual events all throughout the whole period. We've been working on consultancy projects with the major organizers doing big strategic pieces of work that they needed to underpin with research. So that's been good, and it's kept the research function pretty busy. We've been expanding into corporate events, which is an area that's been on our horizons for a while, but we've been getting some really good traction in that. And perhaps most pressingly, we've launched a global common data format for event engagement data. So, which is a whole new business, a whole new world for us. So, yeah, it's been a very, very busy time.
It sounds it. So let's just go and unpick some of those things. So the piece that I picked up on first was the customer journey mapping or measurement, as you say. Can you explain a little bit more about that and what you hope to sort of produce as a result of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the days of organizers being starved of engagement data and having very high engagement in a live event at one point and the need to conduct to gather customer experience insight at the end of that event. Those days are disrupted. They look a bit different nowadays. You still need that underpinning, overarching measurement project at the end, which talks to the overall strategic point of view, cycle to cycle. But the organizer can't wait for that to understand what's going on. There's huge amounts of data coming out of the engagement platforms they're using as they engage their customers, in an omni-channel approach, as it's largely referred to nowadays. And organizers need to be able to measure and really understand how they're delivering on those real key moments of truth, those real key milestones in the customer journey. And that might be pre-event content, pre-event white papers, pre-event webinars, matchmaking, any of those networking components that are available through their digital engagement platforms. And they need to get that in real time. So we've been developing our capabilities to deliver these little micro survey JavaScript widgets that can be embedded anywhere and enable the organizer to really get that that real-time view, and to be able to benchmark that against some meaningful comparable industry standards for exactly that comparable moment of truth across many organizers' customer journeys.
And do you think that, you know, this pause, as you described it, has been opportune in the sense that organizers are getting far more interested in, or have had an opportunity, let's say, to delve deeper than they have done before? And then the supplementary question to that is, will this stick? Will, you know, when things hopefully return to some kind of normality, will people continue to do this, or will we go back to what we were doing?
It's so difficult to answer the latter question. I think I think what it's the whole pause, as we're referring to it, is it's catalyzed a lot of long-term change. And had that long-term change been able to happen organically, and in such a way that I think was more to the organizer and exhibitors' mutual alignment and liking, then I think that engagement and that increase in digital engagement would have been a much more gradual process, and it would have. I don't think we would have met much resistance to it. I think it would have been a gradual education process, and then it would start to become a performance differentiator from shows that are more digitally enabled than those that aren't. Yeah. But what's happened, of course, is we've been shocked into having to use virtual, and that, of course, I think has potentially alienated a lot of exhibitors, forced them to develop some of their own content and virtual channels, forced them to consider completely reallocating their budgets. And certainly the data that we've measured from the virtual expo, that kind of lift and shift approach, where exhibitors were offered a virtual alternative as a like for like to a live event, that didn't work very well. You know, just to reference the Net Promoter Score data, because it is the most commonly talked about KPIs that of the most common KPIs that come out of the materials that we measure. You know, that came out at an exhibitor benchmark for virtual expos at -52 industry wide, which is that's a shocker. So, and not sustainable, of course. So I think certainly in our conversations with large corporates, I think there's some resistance to the engagement model that the organizer is talking about leveraging moving forward. But I think bit by bit, I think people are going to be bursting to get back to live, but I think bit by bit that trajectory is unavoidable. Once tech gets its it sounds sinister, but gets its claws in somewhere, it's very, very sticky. And I think that there's going to be a whole mix of different organizers, that some are really good at executing it from the get-go. Others have a slower learning curve and others lag. And I do think that the digital enablement and digital engagement is bit by bit going to become a differentiator that will add value.
Yeah, I mean, there was the LiveX event that happened at Lancaster Gate over a week ago now, had a panel with Hugh Jones, Doug from Tarsus, Simon Kimball, Laurie from Montgomery. And they were talking obviously about, you know, the revenue makeup in terms of digital versus live, and obviously everybody was saying that was going to increase significantly, and yet the question was posed to them all as to whether they'd all been to a successful or a great digital event, and none of them could really quote one, and they all kind of sort of unilaterally said, together said that they hadn't. Which was kind of damning, which is kind of, I guess, underlining your point that we didn't execute the intentions definitely there. The execution is somewhat lacking.
I think it's really difficult to compare what you expect as outcomes and experience from a virtual event to an in-person event. If you do that live comparison, because the context is, I know what a amazing live expo experience feels like, and if you offer me a virtual one, then it's never going to compare, particularly if you're in the business of very successfully monetizing the live format. But there are so many organizers that have, perhaps previously delivered an event where their maximum live audience reach for an in-person event may have been, niche, kind of like 2,000 to 5,000 attendees. And the virtual approach has enabled them to reach out to so many more. In some cases, they've seen numbers like 15 to 20,000 for an event like that, where really they've been able to massively increase their event brand reach. And definitely some of the research that we've been doing in our the work that we do with UFI and the Global Recovery Insights. I'm not going to do any spoilers today, but I think there are some really strong indicators that there are some positive benefits in terms of converting people to be more interested in participating in a live event they haven't done before.
Absolutely.
By hooking them in with the virtual event. So the opportunity to expand a live event using virtual, I think, is a real phenomenon and something that we need to study and exploit as an industry. But I also think there's going to be some real specialist kind of small is beautiful type business, like niche business models that come out of this. And it's not going to go away.
There's no denying the direction of travel. I mean, it's got to go that way. And just because the NPS is so poor at the moment doesn't necessarily mean that we should give it up. It means that we need to get better at it.
Exactly.
I think that you also make a good point about widening the audience. And not only does it widen it, it also allows us to go for certain demographics and types of people that ordinarily wouldn't come to shows. So I think Doug made the point that he'd seen far more engagement from women, from under 30s, sort of target areas that we know that we've got to do better at. So it's a great opportunity for us to widen the net to include those demographics.
Yeah, and who's going to give that up? Once you've had reach of 15 to 20,000, where previously, you've got a live audience of, the smaller numbers that I was alluding to, you're not going to give that up. Why would you? You'd be mad. You just find other ways to engage them, other ways to inform them, and other ways to monetize them. And look to convert as many as possible to come to the live event. So I can't see any organizer walking away from that new toolkit that enables them to talk to that wider audience.
Well, and let's then go on to VSEF. So explain what that is and why you've done it and what you hope to achieve.
Well, so as one of the parties that I would say delivers more measurement of events than most other parties in the industry, we had quite early exposure to the challenges of dealing with lots of different data formats that capture the engagement data from into the different virtual platforms.
What does VSEF stand for?
Oh, it stands for Virtual Standard Export Format. But if I'm quite honest, that's already dated as a name. So it'll largely be known as VSEF moving forward. There's little value in changing the brand at this stage, but there was a short period. There was a period last year where I think we had 30 different data formats from virtual events that we were measuring, where the organizer had asked us to receive that data, blend it with the kind of data we capture, and run the analytics to create the strategic story. And it was totally unworkable. And we fast realized this isn't just unworkable for us. This is unworkable for all the major organizers. It's unbelievably unworkable for corporates and event agencies. If you want to be able to use the right platform for the job, and we don't live in a one platform fits all world. Different platforms have developed completely different user interfaces and specialisms. And we're now in a world where 300 businesses are presenting themselves as virtual/hybrid engagement platforms. And we can't continue to operate in a data siloed industry whilst we also hope to be able to offer a more measurable solution to that marketing buck that makes our industry work.
So we
have to grow up as an industry and unify.
for the non-technicians then, what are the implications of that? So is this like sort of computer software and, you know, everybody having their proprietary systems and not being able to shift from one to the other? Is that essentially what it means?
So no, it's best to see the data format for those people that aren't especially data literate as like a language or a currency, something like that. And if you imagine that you work with your virtual platform, you work with 5 virtual platforms. Well, in each case, you get a currency of data that comes out of that platform. But unfortunately, the currency doesn't easily convert. So you're locked into that currency.
Right. Okay.
If you want to consume that with that individual platform. And if you want to convert it and you want to use 2 platforms, you want to convert that data, the onus is on so that you can consume, engage critical customer experience, customer engagement data from your virtual and hybrid events. And you want to bring that into your CRM systems. You want to automate marketing communication around that. You want that to exist in data lakes where you can really understand your customers and their needs and behavior better.
100%.
You need to write some kind of conversion methodology to make data from platform 1 talk to data from platform 2. And that's just in the case of 2 platforms. And the data doesn't always convert because the way in which those file types and structures and the language and the way the data is captured on each metric is different from one platform to the next. So you either live in a world where you go, it's fine for us all to work around the horrible complexity of data silos, where we're either locked into one supplier's data silo or in some cases into multiple data silos that don't talk to each other, and we have a limited ability to use that data collectively to compare, to understand, to analyze, to learn, and to improve. Or you go, no, we actually as an industry need to grow up a bit. We need to create some data standardization here. And the onus needs to be on the platforms to adopt that so that everyone can consume some consistent data. And as this isn't lightweight, unimportant, throwaway data. This is critical channel data about what our customers really do and about how they engage that will massively impact their relationship with our event brands moving forward. So we can't just sit back and let it flutter around in, you know, the anarchy of 300 virtual event platforms that aren't talking to each other. We need to take charge of this, and that's what vSAN is.
So it's obvious from a customer, from an organizer perspective, that we want the latter. We want to be able to, you know, have data that's in a common language that we can then use and analyze and get the insight that we need. I guess from the provider's perspective, you know, that's a more tricky question, isn't it? Because I guess, you know, they, in a way, there are benefits for them being locked in with the organizer.
Yeah, but that's never going to be a strong strategy on which to trade as a key business partner to the major organizers.
So are all those guys up for it then? So so you know, you are then obviously bringing those guys together, and generally they're responding well to that.
Well, so look, you're making a really good point. That there will be some platforms that really don't like the idea that their data be comparable to competitive platforms and organizers' ability to do that, and the fact that the organizer will, if they decide to move on to another platform, there's no data lock-in moving forward because they will be able to consume the very same data from competitive platforms. So some will go, no, I don't like that. Others will see it from a completely different perspective and go, first of all, they want the virtual events industry to be a really recognized channel, and they know that it needs to grow up, and they want to be part of that, and they want a voice at the table in shaping that. Then others will see that they get so much day-to-day pain from the customization of exports and bending over backwards to try and serve data to organizers the way each different organizer wants it, and so that's a painful process for them. And then you've got the onboarding process where, you know, they come up against, you know, those barriers with new customers, and then I guess ultimately they get that they want to do the right thing by the market and they want to do the right thing by the organizer. So this is progression. we are, and believe it or not, we are so far behind other industries. Data standardization has existed in so many other markets for 20 years. So and considering we're a marketing channel, that and where the marketing buck is going, it's been over the last 20 years, more and more marketing spend has been going in the direction of more and more measurable digital channels at the expense of traditional media. Yeah. We've kind of got away with that up to this point, and we're not going to get away with it much longer. Yeah. So we have to get our data position to mature, and we have to be able to talk in more grown-up terms about the way events perform, and to share that measurement data with exhibitors more transparently.
So other industries have done it. Obviously, the customers and the suppliers want it to happen, and you're the conduit by which it is happening. So what's the roadmap then? What, when is this likely to happen? How do we get to that end goal?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I will just correct you on the terminology there, because I wouldn't say that we're the conduit through which that's happening.
Okay.
What Explori has done is effectively give birth to VSEF, which is a collaborative industry initiative.
Got you.
So we've worked with the organizers extensively. We brought on board, and we didn't meet a single objection from any organizer we reached out to. So we've got most of the major, let's say the largest organizers on board. That list includes Informa, Reed, Clarion, Hive, Tarsus, Easy Fairs, Messe Frankfurt, Messe Munich, Verona Fiera. So they worked collaboratively with us from October to enable us to research them and understand what their needs were, so that we could build an initial first draft of a common data format that was going to meet their needs. Yeah. And then we worked collaboratively with a group of the most commonly adopted virtual event platforms to then get them to feed into the process as well. And that list includes Intrado, Expo Platform, Swapcard, Grip, Events Case, and ASP. And now there's a number of other platforms that are joining and coming on board.
And most of the big ones, really.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a very collaborative effort, and it's going to continue to be a collaborative cross-industry group. It's not for profit. We've made the data format itself open source. So far, Explori's funded everything, which obviously isn't sustainable. No. The organization will need to generate enough revenues, which it will do so by offering sponsorship opportunities to the platforms and offering value in return for that, of course, so that VSEF can continue to grow and develop, so that it can meet the growing needs of the organizer world moving forward. And that's not just the expo world, that is the corporate events world, the association-led events world. So it truly is a cross-industry initiative, and we've seen amazing support from the industry associations for this as well. Yeah. There's a long list of those guys that are on board as well.
So everybody's behind you. You've obviously got, the wind behind you, the wind in your sails, if you like. So, and excuse my ignorance, but is there a point by which, is there an end? What's the end goal? The end goal is to have this standard, and it's done. And is it a constantly evolving?
It will constantly evolve. So what you can't do when you're developing something in an industry data format is stay endlessly in the R&D process to try and finesse the ultimate product that would take forever and ever. For many reasons. Firstly, that would take too long to get any momentum. And secondly, you'd end up engineering something elaborate, so elaborate, in fact, that there would be technical challenges to how adoptable it would be for the virtual platforms. Yeah. So you need to move at a steady pace and start with a minimum viable product. So that's what version 1 of VSEF is, and it was launched a few weeks ago. It's good. It's been very well considered. It comes with a whole glossary of terminologies. It defines the structure of the data, and that's all it is. People often get confused that, is this some kind of middleware? Is it a software? And it's not. It literally is purely the language, if you like. That's a good way of seeing it, that we've just created a common language. So the way that data comes out is designed in a way that everyone can consume. Okay. And in addition to defining that language so it's available in an export format, so that, say, an event team wants to get that data out, they'll be able to click an export button and that data will be retrievable for them. We are also developing the API, the integration guidance documentation from a technical standpoint, so that it's easy for organizers to integrate the data from their virtual platform partners into their other business systems.
Okay.
So that's the responsibility that VSEF takes, but this will require ongoing development, because the platforms and the technology is going to evolve and develop, and organizers' needs are going to change and develop. Okay. So VSEF will need to reflect that. And there'll be a number of working groups that we will coordinate, and there'll be volunteers and participants in each of those groups representing different stakeholders, including the Strategic Expo group, which is that was the kind of founding group that we got things started with. There'll be a group of corporates, event agencies, of course, the associations, the event industry associations, and critically, a data design, data science group as well. Okay. So that we're listening and understanding and continually developing VSEF as a product, so that it can fundamentally be the optimum way of consuming that data.
So, Mark, then I'm obviously keen to throw our support behind it as well. It seems like a eminently sensible thing to do. What more do you need in terms of support and help?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, having just brought it to market, we've been blown away by the level of interest and kind of universal support for this, and the fact that it's clearly growing. For it to really start to get some traction, organizers need to understand it, why it's important to them, and it needs to become a business requirement that is understood, communicated, and very clear. And that will really accelerate the rate with which the platforms will, of course, then develop and comply with the data format. So it does need to be driven from the organizer first and foremost. So, step one is to increase the awareness, and that's what the association partnerships are about. So we have the AEO, UFI, CISO, ICA, AIPC, and we have a number of US-led associations that are just in the process of confirming as well. So it really will be a cross-industry initiative that those associations will be looking to really, I think, drive and represent it, because it serves such a specialist purpose, and it does need to be cross-industry. So I guess awareness is the key thing, and then demanding it.
Yeah, and you seem to have made sort of enormous ground in a very short time. So it's great to see, and it's as I said, it's something that just makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense for everybody, and therefore it's just working through that complexity as you are doing, and getting that awareness. So obviously, hopefully, this will go some way to get more awareness for you as well, Mark. So just to finish off, then, in terms of kind of where we started, Explori, obviously you're now going to go into quite a busy period, I guess. But how's the next 6 months sort of shaping up?
Yeah, well, it's terrifying, frankly, as well as continue with the great progress we're making on VSEF, because that's taking some bandwidth. We've got lots more products development to get out in new versions that are being released of our core platform, and we're on a learning curve working with organizers in this hybrid world that is about to emerge, and no one quite knows how that's going to take shape. So I guess it's going to be a very interesting time. We're also now in the process of 2 huge rollouts with Fortune 1000 corporates that we're now working with on that side. So working with corporate events is a really interesting opportunity for us, and I think a huge market. So it's going to be a busy time. I can't see where we get some rest in amongst all of this, but we would choose busy and productive and healthy and sustainable over having a break.
100%. Amen to that. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck with it all.
Thanks, Simon.
Brilliant news. And I will hopefully see you soon at a live event. So Confex,
yes.
You coming to Confex?
Of course I am. Yeah, I'm going to be there on the 21st and I'm really looking forward to it.
We'll see you there. Cheers, Mike.
Yeah.